There comes a moment in every person's life when the weight of the world presses down so hard that quitting feels like the only logical choice. The road gets dark, the body grows tired, and the voice in your head whispers, "Maybe this isn't for you." But let me tell you something, that moment, that very moment of doubt, is not your ending. It is your test. Every great story ever told was written by someone who refused to stop. Every champion you admire once stood at the edge of giving up and chose to take one more step. Pain is not a sign you are failing. It is a sign you are fighting. It is proof that you have entered the arena where ordinary people never dare to go. The ones who change the world are not the most talented or the most gifted. They are the ones who simply would not quit. Today, I want you to plant these 3 words deep into your soul. I will not quit. Not because the path is easy. Not because success is guaranteed. But because you owe it to the version of yourself that dared to dream. The journey is hard, yes, but you are harder. So stand up, breathe deep, and let's face it together. Embrace the struggle. Difficulty is not the enemy. We have been taught from a young age to avoid pain, to take the easier road, to choose comfort over challenge. Society has conditioned us to believe that if something feels hard, it must mean we are doing something wrong. But that belief, that comfortable lie, has stolen more dreams than failure ever could. The moment you begin to see struggle not as a punishment, but as a process, everything changes. You stop running from it, and you start running through it. Think about every skill you have ever developed, every lesson that truly stuck with you, every version of yourself that you are actually proud of. None of it came from easy days. None of it was built in comfort. It was built in the moments when you were exhausted and kept going anyway. It was built in the quiet nights when nobody was watching and you still showed up. The struggle was never the problem. It was always the point. Look at nature itself. The diamond is nothing but carbon that refused to crack under pressure. The oak tree grows its deepest roots not in calm weather, but in the violent storms that force it to anchor itself to survive. There is a pattern woven into the very fabric of this world, that greatness is always born on the other side of resistance. You are no different. You are subject to the same law, and that law is working in your favor, even when it does not feel that way. The danger is not that life will be hard. The danger is that you will misread the hardness. You will look at the weight on your shoulders and call it a sign to stop, when it is actually a sign to grow. Every time the road narrows, every time the pressure builds, every time your back is against the wall, that is life asking you a question. The question is not, "Can you handle this?" Life already knows you can. The question it is really asking is, "Do you know you can?" Most people quit not because they have reached their actual limit, but because they have reached the edge of their comfort zone and confused it for their limit. These are 2 very different places, separated by nothing but perception and willingness. Your real limit is far beyond where you think it is. Athletes know this. Soldiers know this. Every person who has ever done something remarkable knows that the body and mind are capable of enduring far more than we give them credit for. The struggle is simply the process of discovering the truth about yourself. So the next time life hands you something heavy, before you set it down, before you walk away, before you tell yourself that this was not meant for you, pause. Take one breath. Remind yourself that the weight is not there to break you. It is there to build you. And the person being built right now, in this very season of pressure and pain, is the version of you that the world has been waiting for. The curriculum is hard because the degree you are earning is rare, and not everyone has the courage to stay enrolled long enough to receive it. There is a question that separates the people who endure from the people who quit, and it has nothing to do with talent, resources, or circumstance. It is a simple question, but it is the most powerful one you will ever ask yourself. Why am I doing this? Not the surface-level answer, not the one that sounds impressive when you say it out loud to others, but the real answer. The one that lives in the quiet corners of your chest. The one that keeps you awake at night not with anxiety, but with a fire that refuses to go out. That reason, that deep, personal, unshakable reason, is your fuel. Motivation is a beautiful thing, but it is also one of the most unreliable things you will ever depend on. It comes in waves. It is high on Monday morning after a great speech or a powerful song, and it is completely gone by Wednesday afternoon when reality sets back in. People who build their entire effort on motivation alone are building on sand. The tide will come, and it will wash everything away. But purpose, true purpose, is not a wave. It is bedrock. It does not rise and fall with your mood or your circumstances. It simply exists, constant and immovable, waiting for you to return to it every single time the world knocks you down. Think about the most driven people in history, the ones who changed industries, broke barriers, rewrote what was considered possible. Every single one of them had a why that was bigger than their comfort. Nelson Mandela endured 27 years in prison not because he was superhuman, but because his why, the freedom of his people, was larger than any cell wall they could build around him. A mother working 3 jobs does not do it because she woke up motivated that morning. She does it because the faces of her children are burned into her heart, and that image is enough to carry her through any exhaustion. Purpose does not ask how you feel. It simply moves your feet. The trouble is that many people have never taken the time to truly identify their why. They are chasing goals handed to them by their parents, their culture, their social media feed, goals that look good from the outside but feel hollow on the inside. And when the road gets hard, as it always does, those borrowed goals offer nothing. They cannot sustain you through real pain. Only your truth can do that. Only the thing that is genuinely, authentically yours, the dream that makes your hands tremble a little when you speak it out loud. Only that has the power to pull you through the darkness. So if you find yourself running out of energy, if the effort is starting to feel pointless, if you are going through the motions, but the fire has dimmed, do not reach for another motivational video. Do not look for a new strategy or a different plan. Go back to the beginning. Go back to the moment before the doubt crept in, before the failures piled up, before the voices got loud. Go back to the purest version of why you started. Write it down. Say it out loud. Put it somewhere you cannot avoid seeing it. Let it confront you every morning before the world gets a chance to discourage you. Your why is not a luxury. It is not something to think about when you have free time or when life is going smoothly. It is the very core of your endurance. It is the engine beneath everything you are trying to build. And on the days when your legs refuse to move, on the days when the gap between where you are and where you want to be feels impossibly wide, your why is the only bridge that can cross it. Feed it. Protect it. Never let the noise of the world drown it out. Because a person who knows exactly why they are fighting is one of the most unstoppable forces on this earth, and the world has not yet found a wall strong enough to stop someone whose purpose is truly alive inside them. Nobody tells you this when you are chasing something great. They talk about the wins, they celebrate the highlights, they share the moment of triumph, but they rarely talk about what happened in between. They rarely talk about the attempts that went nowhere, the plans that collapsed, the days when everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And because we do not talk about it enough, we have built a culture that is terrified of failure. A culture where people would rather not try than try and be seen falling. But that fear, that paralysis dressed up as caution, is the most expensive thing a person can carry. It costs you everything you were meant to become. Here is the truth that changes everything once you truly absorb it. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the path to it. Every single time you fail, you are not moving backward. You are gathering information. You are running an experiment that the universe is grading not with a red stamp that says, rejected, but with data that says, here is what does not work. Now you know more than you did before. The scientist does not mourn the failed hypothesis. They record it, learn from it, and design a better one. That is not defeat. That is the scientific method of building a life. And the most successful people on earth have been applying it, consciously or not, for as long as they have been alive. Think about Thomas Edison and his 10,000 attempts to create the light bulb. When a reporter asked him how it felt to fail 10,000 times, he looked at that reporter and said he had not failed once. He had successfully discovered 10,000 ways that did not work. That refrain is not a cute quote to put on a poster. It is a philosophy of survival. It is the mindset that separates the people who eventually break through from the people who stop just short of the breakthrough. Edison did not see the failed attempts as evidence that he was wrong to try. He saw them as evidence that he was getting closer. Every no was narrowing down the path to the yes. The problem is that failure feels deeply personal. When something you poured your heart into does not work, it does not feel like data. It feels like a verdict. It feels like the world looked at your best effort and found it lacking. That feeling is real, and it deserves to be acknowledged. You are allowed to sit with the disappointment. You are allowed to feel the sting of it. But you cannot let that feeling write the story of what the failure means. Because the meaning you assign to failure is entirely within your control, and that meaning will determine everything that happens next. Call it a dead end, and you will stop. Call it a detour, and you will keep moving. Some of the greatest redirections in human history were disguised as disasters. Steve Jobs being fired from the company he founded looked, in that moment, like total ruin. It turned out to be the very thing that freed him to create Pixar, to grow, to return to Apple with a clarity and vision he never would have developed had he never been forced out. J.K. Rowling was a single mother on welfare when she was writing Harry Potter, rejected by 12 publishers before one said yes. What looked like repeated failure was actually the precise pressure needed to forge something extraordinary. The setback was not the end of the story. It was the setup for the most important chapter. So the next time something does not go the way you planned, before you let it define you, before you let it become the reason you slow down or step back, ask yourself what it is teaching you. Get in the habit of mining your failures for the lessons buried inside them, because those lessons are not consolation prizes. They are competitive advantages. Every person who has never failed has also never learned what you now know. Every scar you carry is a subject you have mastered that others have not yet studied. And that knowledge, that hard-earned, lived-in wisdom that only comes from going through something difficult. That is what prepares you for a level of success that no shortcut could ever have taken you to. The question now is not whether you will face more setbacks. You will. The question is whether you are finally ready to stop fearing them and start learning from them. We live in a world that worships intensity. We celebrate the person who goes all in for 72 hours straight, who sacrifices sleep, who pushes to the absolute edge in one dramatic, explosive burst of effort. It makes for a great story. It looks incredible on a highlight reel. But if you study the lives of people who have built something truly lasting, not just a moment of brilliance, but a body of work, a legacy, a life of sustained achievement, you will find that intensity was never their secret. Their secret was something far less glamorous, far less photogenic, and infinitely more powerful. Their secret was that they showed up every single day, whether they felt like it or not, and they did the work. Consistency is the most underrated force in human achievement. It does not trend. It does not go viral. Nobody makes a documentary about the person who quietly worked on their craft every morning for 5 years without missing a day. But that person, that quiet, unglamorous, unshakable person, is the one who ends up rewriting what is possible in their field. Water does not break through rock because it hits hard. It breaks through because it hits constantly, without stopping, without negotiating, without asking for permission or waiting for the right conditions. You do not need to be extraordinary every day. You need to be present every day. You need to be consistent every day. Because consistency, compounded over time, produces results that no single burst of intensity ever could. The days that matter most are not the days when you are fired up and everything is flowing. Those days take care of themselves. The days that truly define who you are and what you will ultimately achieve are the hard days. The days when the alarm goes off and every part of you wants to stay in bed. The days when progress feels invisible and the effort feels pointless. The days when nobody is watching and there is no immediate reward waiting on the other side. What you do on those days is your real character speaking. What you choose on those days is the true measure of your commitment. Because discipline is not what you do when you feel strong. It is what you do when you feel absolutely nothing at all, and you do it anyway. There is a concept that the Japanese call kaizen, the practice of continuous, small, daily improvement. Just 1% better every day. It sounds almost insultingly small. What difference could 1% possibly make? But mathematically, 1% better every day for a year means you are 37 times more capable by the end of it. 37 times. Not from one heroic leap, but from thousands of tiny, disciplined steps taken one after another without stopping. This is the mathematics of consistency, and it is the most honest equation for success that has ever existed. The person who understands this stops looking for the magic moment and starts building the daily habit, because they know that the habit, faithfully honored day after day, will eventually produce something that looks to the outside world like overnight success, but is really just the visible result of invisible consistency finally surfacing. And when you have that kind of foundation beneath you, when your discipline is no longer something you have to fight for but something that simply is who you are, you will begin to understand something about what is waiting for you on the other side of all this work. Every single thing you have ever wanted is still out there waiting for you. It has not moved. It has not been given to someone else. It has not expired or disappeared into the dark. It sits on the other side of one thing, and one thing only: your decision not to quit. Most people never reach it, not because they were unworthy, not because the dream was too big, but because they stopped when the distance felt unbearable. They put down everything they had built, turned around, and walked back to familiar ground. And the tragedy is not that they failed. The tragedy is that they were closer than they ever knew. Think about every ounce of struggle you have carried to get to this point. Every failure you reframed. Every morning you showed up without feeling like it. Every moment you chose your purpose over your comfort. None of that was wasted. None of it was random. It was all deposits into an account that is fuller than you realize, and the withdrawal, the moment when everything you worked for finally breaks through the surface, that moment is not a matter of chance. It is a matter of arithmetic. You have been doing the work. You have been paying the price. The breakthrough is not a question of if. It is only ever a question of when. So plant these words into the deepest part of who you are, and let them live there permanently. You will not quit. Not because the road is easy, but because you now know it is worth it. Not because the pain is gone, but because you are bigger than the pain. You have been built by the struggle, fueled by your purpose, educated by your failures, and sharpened by your consistency. You are not the same person who started this journey. You are forged. You are ready. And the world, with all its doubt, all its resistance, all its noise, has absolutely no idea what is coming.